Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode in Creative Careers, where we talk with people from all over who have arts-related jobs. And today we have a job that is really intriguing, and I'm excited to talk about it. And I'll let him share a little bit more about what it is. Thank you so much, Howard Glickman, for joining us today.
Hello, Hannah.
Uh, so tell me a little bit about. I was trying to figure out even a simple way to condense the name of what you do. So tell us a little bit. What is your job? What do you do? What does that mean for you?
So I am a theater consultant, and what that means, in a nutshell, is I help design theaters. So it's about as backstage as you can get. By the time there's even a show in the theater, we're usually gone. What a theater consultant does is we're a part of the design team when you want to design a new theater or renovate an existing theater or turn a found space into a performance space. And we work on a team with an architect and other consultants, mechanical, air conditioning, plumbing, structural, all of those other team members in the design of a facility. And really where our role becomes very vital is we're the ones who understand and know how theaters work and how the people who are going to be working in that theater need that facility to be designed in order to allow them to do their job effectively. So we provide that link between the users of the facility and the architect and the other designers. And we bring in that specialized knowledge in order to help guide everyone into the appropriate design so that the space works for everyone.
Awesome. We'll talk a little bit more in a minute about what that looks like and what that entails in terms of skills. But I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey personally. How did you end up here? Did you do theater as a kid? What did that look like?
Yeah, so actually, no, I didn't do it as a kid. In fact, I didn't get into theater until college. I went to college intending to be a high school history teacher. But during my first semester, I took a little break and went and visited an old friend who was in a very specific technical theater program. And I spent about 2 weeks hanging out with him and his group of friends and enjoyed myself. It was a really cool bunch of people. And I just said, I really wish I knew what they were talking about all the time. So when I went back to school, I took an intro into stagecraft class and just said, this is it. This is cool. This is what I want to do. So then, got a degree in technical theater, worked for a couple years after college doing concert lighting and scenic construction. Also worked at a firm that designed and built the Christmas windows for places like Macy's and Bloomingdale's and things like that, which was really just scenic construction on a very small scale. After that, I managed a couple theaters at a community college in Brooklyn. And then that led me eventually to a job designing and installing theatrical lighting systems all around New York City and the country with a firm that was called Production Arts at the time. We did some of the major lighting system installations all around Times Square. I got to do a wax museum for Madame Tussauds. And then so that then sort of led me into the building of theaters, which then a couple years later, I moved out to California, worked as a theatrical lighting systems representative for a few years. And then I started working at my current firm, Auerbach Pollock Friedlander, doing the actual design of the theaters themselves. So there was sort of a progression there. We have some people in our firm who sort of took that route, coming at it through the stagehand designer approach. And then we also have people who came at it by going to school for it. There are some schools that have programs for things like theater consulting, and they take their architecture school and their theater school, and they combine a program to sort of to teach that sort of thing. So we have at our firm, we've got a great mix of people who approached this unique little niche from a variety of directions,
Yeah.
which brings a lot of different skill sets and knowledge to the work that we do.
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about what makes this special or unique among other arts careers. What do you have to do differently to think about designing the whole space? And I'd also be interested as well in knowing a little bit about how does this differ from why do you need specifically a theater consultant as opposed to just building any building? What do you really need to bring to this?
Right. Well, theaters are certainly very unique building types because they're living buildings. They're not done when construction is over, and in fact, they're just getting started because their use changes from show to show to show. You may need to use the theater in a certain way for an opera, but then you also might have the symphony in there the next week. And so that's going to have very different acoustic requirements. It's going to have, different architectural requirements. So, theaters are a unique building. They're not like a hotel. When you're done, you open the hotel, people come and stay in the hotel rooms, and they leave and they go about their business. An office building. You open it up and people go about their work. But a theater's always changing. And we sort of need to try to anticipate those changes or those needs, the way they work. But also they have very specific needs, large open spaces for both the audience and the stage. That brings in a unique set of structural challenges. Building those large open spans. It also brings in a unique set of challenges for all of the different trades. The ductwork for the air conditioning system can't just run straight across the stage and pump air out wherever it's needed. It's got to be very carefully designed to stay out of the way and yet provide the proper environment. The same thing with, say, the electrical system. You need all the power for your dimmers or your relays in order to do your lights. And of course, that needs to be flexible from event to event to event. So there's a lot that makes a theater unique. And there's a lot that makes working in a theater sort of unique among occupations. And so by taking what we know about how you work in a theater and what a theater needs, we can help communicate that to all those other partners in that design team. Architects are terrific. They've got a really great job. Most of them don't build theaters very often. Most people don't build theaters very often. So the theater consultant is there as part of that team to help provide that specific knowledge of what's needed to make this building work. Not, how we can help them design their shell for their building, but then inside that, how do we make it work? How does the audience arrive? What do they see when they walk in? And then how do they get from their lobby into their theater? And once they're in the auditorium, what's that experience like? And then within that auditorium, of course, there's lots of specialized knowledge and needs that you need to have. There's Americans with Disabilities Act codes about how to provide accessibility to people. There's the needs of air conditioning that large a space without it being noisy or blowing on people. And then then we get into the construction of the building itself. And we need to sort of, again, bring that knowledge of how this place will be used to the construction team partners. It may seem to them like it makes a lot of sense. Well, we'll just run this ductwork over here because there's nothing there. But they may not know that there's going to be an orchestra shell that has to store off on that side of the stage, and it's 18 feet tall. So if it's easier for them to just drop that ductwork to 16 feet, well, we know there's going to be something that's going to be in conflict with that later. So we try and make sure that we communicate that and help the construction team understand why things are being done in these very unique and different ways.
It's really interesting. I like you kind of dug into this a little bit. I'm curious, what were some of the skills that you really needed to work on? Either stuff. I like that you brought up some of the things that your knowledge from the previous theater work you'd done, how that was really useful. So yeah, were there any other skills that transferred really well from previous theater, and what were new things that you had to really get much better at to be able to do this?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I once said when I came over from designing lighting systems to designing the whole theater, I said to someone, I felt like I really understood this handful of sand. I knew every grain in this handful of sand, and suddenly I looked up and I was standing on a beach. There's a lot of stuff that I had to learn, and in fact, I'm still learning because it's always changing. The technology is changing. The design trends are changing. We're in the midst of switching from LED, from incandescent lighting to LED lighting, which has a big impact on not only the lighting system design, but the electrical load, and the cooling load is much lower because we're not putting out all that heat from those big bright lights. So it's always changing, and we're always learning new things. We're also in the process of changing from two-dimensional design in CAD, computer-aided design, into more 3D design with a program called Revit, being the one that everyone's using a lot right now. So learning those things, learning the drafting and the drawing. When I was in college, we learned how to draw light plots and scenery with pencils and straight edges. And even though now a lot of that's being done on computers, going from that just designing the light plot to learning how to read the construction plans and learning how to read structural plans or mechanical system plans, or reading architectural details, and then how to do that, figuring out how to, we design, for example, the stage lift. So we've got to draw that stage lift and incorporate it into the architectural design, or the rigging system, which can be really tricky. We're currently switching a lot of times from counterweight systems to motorized rigging. So the technology is always changing. So we're constantly learning. I told someone that it would take me 5 years to really think that I really knew what I was doing. And 5 years later, they came to me and I said, oh yeah, 5 years and I'll really know what I'm doing. I think I'm on my third 5 years now, and I'm still learning. There's always new things to learn, which keeps it fresh and keeps it interesting. Every theater is different, so there's always new challenges. In terms of how we bring that knowledge from having worked in theater to designing theaters, I think that's really helpful because it allows us to really explain to the architect or the structural engineer or whomever how these things work. How you need to be able to get that 12-foot tall flat that you built in the scene shop onto the stage. That's why that door needs to be so big or so high. Or we need to be able to take all that 10-foot truss out of the truck and onto the stage without having to go around a lot of corners. Or you might need to get that first band's gear off the stage and onto the truck while the main act is still playing. So that's why putting the door over here might be more useful than putting the door over there. So we think about all of those things when we're trying to help explain how these spaces work and live. And and are used. So I guess to some, knowing how the space is used and how the people work in it helps us advise and collaborate with all those other people and sort of give them the understanding of why we do things a certain way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Our final thought as we kind of wrap things up, this is obviously going out where a lot of students are still stuck at home. They don't really have the opportunity to go and take a stagecraft class or anything like
right.
that. So what would be something that if a kid is watching this and thinks, that sounds really cool, that sounds like something I might be interested in, what could they do today from home to improve one of their skills to move toward this goal?
So, well, there's a couple things you can do, particularly today, working from home. One thing to do would be to simply spend a little time looking at various theaters. You know, go search for the 10 most famous theaters or the 10 most beautiful theaters, and most of them will offer a virtual tour. So take those tours, see lots of different theaters. From different eras and different uses. Look at concert halls, look at opera houses, look at multi-use theaters. Familiarize yourself. Just look at theaters. They're fantastic buildings. They're wonderful spaces. The other things people could do while at home is work on those computer skills. Practice drawing stuff in CAD or maybe start learning Revit, or work on your computer programming skills. A lot of theater technology is really becoming automated these days. So just learning how to program things will translate to learning how to program a rigging system or learning how to program a lighting system. If you're interested in robotics or just things that work by remote control, play with your drone, figure out how these motions work, because that's theater is motion, in, out, on, off, forward, back, and so much of that is becoming automated these days that being comfortable in that environment would be helpful. So those are a couple things you can do. Familiarize yourself with theaters. Learn the drafting skills, the drawing skills, and learn the programming. Those would be things that everyone, I think, if they were interested, could do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your knowledge with us on something that I didn't know a lot about going into, and I'm sure a lot of other
sure,
folks watching won't either. So thank you so much.
absolutely.
Huh.
And I would also encourage everyone, there are organizations. The United States Institute of Theater Technology, for example, is a very student-focused group. So reach out to your local chapter. The American Society of Theater Consultants, we do our student work based more with college-age students. But if you are interested at a younger level, reach out to a theater consultant. Say, this is interesting to me. Reach out to one of us. ASTC, American Society of Theater Consultants, has a website. Wherever you might be, you can probably find a consultant nearby. And most of us, I think, would be very glad to talk to a student, someone who had an interest in this, and give them a little bit more in-depth advice or guidance or mentoring than we could do here in this few minutes.
That's super fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that as a resource. I think that'll be fantastic.
Great.
Awesome. And thank you all for watching. And don't forget to tune in again tomorrow at 1 p.m. for more Let's Be Creative Arts content. See you then.